there's some maybe blanks that don't get filled in for you, you can probably see the first part online, which will make the second part seem a little more meaningful. But we're going to do a brief overview of what we talked about yesterday. So we were speaking, actually a lot of the devotees have been speaking about the subject of unity and diversity, and we're exploring that in relationship to how being in our higher self as opposed to our lower self greatly facilitates unity and diversity. And we explored also how our lower self can very much sabotage that sense of unity and connection and can be damaging in many different ways. And we did a little exercise where we differentiated the results and what it felt like to engage in those different kinds of consciousness in the modes of goodness as opposed to eagerness and passion in the lower self and goodness in the higher self. And it was it's kind of an eye-opener when you look at that. And we talked about how to become more conscious, where our consciousness is actually at in terms of our higher self and lower self, and how important that is in our spiritual life, for our spiritual life. And we talked about how it affects our relations with community, our relations with those who are close to us, and it also affects our relationship with the Holy Name. And it's very important. And actually they're all very integrated, because I worship the deity Radha Madana Mohan in Vancouver for over 20 years, those head Pujari. And the deity Madan Mohan, they bring the Sambandha Gyan, the sense of connection. They help us connect with the Lord. They help us connect with Him. And connection with Krishna is not independent of connection with the Vaishnavas, who are incidentally our spouses and our ashram members and everyone. So it's extremely important in our lives to realize the importance of healthy relationships for our development of our Krishna consciousness. Very important. And we also talked about some of the physiological phenomena that occur in our body in terms of our mind, our higher self related to the prefrontal cortex, the lower self related to very briefly, something called the amygdala, and how we can become triggered to actually lose touch with the sense of knowledge that Krishna is trying to give us from the heart. When we become escalated, our body produces adrenaline and cortisol. You've heard the expression, I flip my lid. Literally, that's what happens. When you become a little emotionally escalated, your body becomes flooded with adrenaline and cortisol. Your higher self becomes disconnected, because your lower self actually has a different function. The amygdala is to deal with fight, flight, or freeze. And in that regard, it's very good. But sometimes, like the smoke alarm goes off, you're making chapatis, it's a false alarm. So sometimes this lower part of our brain can misread something, or it can project images that we have stored from the past into the present and make the present very difficult to deal with. It's called trauma responses. And there's big T trauma response and small T trauma response. And they can be problematic to remaining in our higher self unless we learn to self-regulate and control that.
And if you're really flipped, how long is it going to take you? How much of a break are you going to need? Who remembers?
20 minutes.
Yes! It wasn't even there, he knows.
I'm dealing with it daily.
At least 20 minutes before your body will respond again.
And we also pointed out how Srila Prabhupada wanted, in his statement of purpose, through a systematic process of education, to correct the imbalance of values in society, to create peace and tranquility. So part of those values are to have healthy Vaishnava relationships. Prabhupada wanted us to cooperate together. And sometimes that's difficult. And that requires some mental control. So we'd like to talk a little bit about something called relational mindfulness, which in essence is about trying to stay in that higher self. And it's very interesting. Now, many psychologists also refer to mindfulness as spiritual consciousness. Many of them understand that, because that is a very high spiritual value in all the recognized religions of the world, to be kind, compassionate, loving, caring. And that comes when we're in our higher self. So if we use the word mindfulness, it also means our higher self. And why it's important to do this, and why it's also important to understand the difference between these two states of consciousness and how they affect us. It's a very nice verse in Sri Upanishad, the 11th verse, and it describes one who learns the process of knowledge and the essence side by side can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and attain the full blessings of immortality. So it's a very important subject to understand. It's something you don't want to skip over. Because if we don't understand what the essence is, if we don't understand the tricky aspect of our lower mind, we might start to think that some of those thought patterns are actually normal. It's the norm. And that's dangerous. That's dangerous. So very important to learn to make those distinctions. And in terms of the higher self and emotions, it's important to understand that we can experience positive emotions, and we can also experience negative emotions without being drawn into our lower self. That's very important to understand. We have that choice in how we respond to the situation. As you were saying, there's some very difficult situations, but we have that choice to. And is it easy? No, it's hard. It's hard for all of us. It's very hard. But it's something that's very important for spiritual life to learn to do that. And I'll admit for myself, and I think for men as general, pardon? In general.
Not as generals.
In general, to understand and process emotions. It's very hard for men. Men, in the age we live in, have been taught to stuff their emotions, not to feel things. Men don't cry, only babies cry, only women cry. Just push through it, forget about the pain and suffering. And so men, it's sometimes referred to as a lack of knowledge of emotional intelligence. And that can be very detrimental. As Prabhu was saying, that sometimes not processing emotions, being able to forgive, it can be a cause of all kinds of diseases. And also, modern language is extremely conducive to having a low level of emotional intelligence. You look at the words, especially young people use today, tend to be very gross. Like in the 70s, we would say, oh, that's really cool. Now they would say, that's really wicked. You might say, oh, the prashadam today was killer. It's got poison in it? What a strange way to express things. So, and you complicate that by the fact that in Kali Yuga, our finer sentiments become lost. Are becoming, actually Prabhu said, how do you say? Yeah, he said finer sentiments become lost. And that's also very problematic because we tend to go to the gross emotions. We tend to go to anger. Maybe we're not actually angry, maybe we're just frustrated. That's different. That's a big difference between anger and frustration. And let's say here's an example. Is Gora here? Gora's not. I'm going to pick on Gokulananda. Yeah. So, example of gross emotions. I say, Gokulananda, the Prabhu told me that you stole my maha.
Well, we're allowed to still.
But I'm escalated. I'm not going to accept that.
Okay.
So
what?
I did that. So I'm really angry.
Well,
I'm
that's your
angry.
problem.
But I'm not angry. I'm a spirit soul. In old English, you would say, anger has come upon me. So in old English, I might say something like, Sir Gokulananda, I heard a rumor from the village gossip that you stole my plate of divine divine remnants from our dear Lord. And it has brought anger upon me. Please tell me your truth.
The Lord giveth and Lord take it away.
End of scene one. So we can say things in a more kind, compassionate way. And it's important we learn to do that. And we can do that by developing this kind of mindfulness that we're not responding from our lower self in ways which sabotage communication, sabotage relationships. And again, it's a choice we have to make. It's difficult because sometimes there's situations that are provocations. Something happens in an instant, and physiologically, the time between there's some stimulus and we initiate the response, there's between a third and a fifth of a second. That's not a lot of time. But at least we can take a breath. Okay, how can I respond in the mode of goodness? Can I remember Krishna? He says, speech in the mode of goodness, it's not hurtful, it's kind, and it's beneficial. Now I can try to respond like that. So we can draw from our teachings if we just can learn to take that pause and respond more in the mode of goodness. And so if we remain in that higher self, we can have more of an equiposed state of consciousness. We can be more balanced. We can be more, sometimes they'll say, intuitive. And Srila Prabhupada, interesting, he said there is no such thing as intuition. He said it's actually super soul. So Krishna, he's actually trying to give us a message. A lot of times we're not listening. So if we can be a little more equiposed, we avoid flipping our lids. If we flip our lids, you can't really access that hard knowledge. We can be equiposed. We can access the divine knowledge that Krishna is trying to give us in the moment. And another very important point again, that this impacts our relationships, as I said at the beginning, community, close relationships, and also our relationship with the holy name. And it's also very important to always remember that Srila Prabhupada, why did he come? To deliver the Western world, which was filled with what? Impersonalism. And if you think about it, when we're in our lower self, we make this kind of inconsiderate remarks or different behaviors, which are in the very lower modes. It's actually really impersonal. It's really impersonal. I mean, how many people here had a fight with someone in front of the deities? Yay, nobody. How many had a fight or argument with someone they know, a close friend or spouse? A lot, right? So why there's a disconnect, we haven't really imbibed Krishna consciousness. That Krishna's here, but he's also in our heart. He's in the hearts of everyone around us. There is parts and parcels. They deserve the utmost respect. So if we could actually imbibe that, it would be very easy. So the process of Krishna consciousness is to try to understand that and live that. And as Malati Prabhu said, how Jamuna said, if you can't live it, you can't give it. So if we want to give Krishna consciousness, the more we can live it, the more we'll be effective at giving Krishna consciousness to others.
So we're going to examine today some skills that can promote this relational mindfulness. So we are defining relational mindfulness as, would someone like to read this?
Being aware of how one's actions impact the relationship and focusing on mutual well-being rather than individual desires.
So we're mindful. How is this impacting the other person? As we were, I don't know if I commented, it was in Rajvikari's seminar. It's really important to be mindful. It's really helpful if you're in person. So, we advise couples or close friends, when you want to have a serious discussion, look at each other. See how how your words are impacting what you're saying. So you can imagine trying to patch up an argument over text message. So I was saying the research, the results of that working out are zero. So to have this relational mindfulness, we have to focus on the well-being of the other person rather than just our point of view. So there's actually three skills that can be very effective if you start to utilize them in improving your relationships. And they are luckily something that you can learn. They can be taught. If you don't have them now, you can learn. So part of Vaishnava etiquette and part of Vaishnava behavior is learning how to act that puts you in the right frame of mind, and then we can get to our higher consciousness. So they can be actually summed up in three. I put them in this order because, there's that verse, Kelowna stave, and the stave is certainly. If you chant the holy name, you'll make spiritual master. So certainly, if you do these three Vaishnava behaviors, empathy, vulnerability, and accountability, it will vastly improve our relationships. And it will really help that unity. Otherwise, we get so much diversity that we all end up with all these little groups in the same united temple. So, we're going to talk first about accountability. And accountability, it's actually taking responsibility for one's own actions. So when we have a disagreement with someone, instead of coming in with the defense, why we did this or that, or why we hurt you, if we can take a little bit of accountability. Here's my part. Yes, I'm upset for your part, but I had some part to play in it. And if we can start a little bit soft, one of the characteristics of being in the lower self is that we're harsh. As soon as we're harsh, we're in our lower self. It's off. We're not going to get anywhere. It's not going to work. It's not that I'm going to build muscle in the other person by being harsh. Research has disproved that. You're thinking you're strengthening the other person, it doesn't prove up. They might do something out of fear, but really kindness, compassion, teaching someone, giving them some grace to learn, is how they reboot themselves, how they learn to go in a better direction. It doesn't come by harshness. That's one of those fallacies that somebody brought in. So, to have accountability, we need to take responsibility for our part of whatever we've done. And so that's crucial because a person in their higher self, they're going to own their mistakes and apologize sincerely without qualifiers or without blame shifting. So I'm going to talk a little bit about apology. Mara is talking about forgiveness. But this is kind of the other side. When you're on the other side of the fence, how am I going to apologize for what I've done? And so, instead of saying, I'm sorry, but you made me angry. That's an apology? That's a blame. It's a fact. No, it's not a fact because you could have chosen to respond in a different way. You may be feeling angry. That's okay. You can own that and we can feel anger. Anger is not a bad emotion. It's what you do, what the behavior that follows is your choice. So, as my husband was saying, below anger can be many other emotions. You can feel a sense of injustice, you can feel frustration, you can feel upset, you can feel wronged. And by looking a little bit deeper, that's the next thing. We can judge what my behavior should be.
That's a good point about we have to sometimes just peel back the layers of emotions because like Prabhu describes how anger can be used against Krishna's enemies, like against Radhana. So Gokulanand is not exactly like Radhana, he just goes, Maha. So anger is not appropriate. Maybe I'm just a little frustrated. I'm angry.
Hangry. He's hungry because he told his mom.
Sorry, you have my.
Yeah. So a more appropriate response could be, I'm sorry, I should not have raised my voice. That's being accountable, and that's an actual apology. So apologies actually, if you want to be very effective with your apologies, I give you a four-step formula. One is own that you did it, you know. Oh, I'm sorry, I did steal the maha. I don't know if this is going to work out to be a good one. My big thing is I'm constantly interrupting my husband. I'm sorry I interrupted you. That was wrong because it's not the first time I did it. It tends to be, it tends to be part of my character that I think I know what you're going to say next and I'm trying to save you time. And I'm trying to, I feel guilty.
Yeah.
It's part of, it's part of my character. And in the future, though, I will try to let you finish your sentences before I talk. And because I understand that you have something valuable to say, and will you forgive me for that?
Sure.
So it's essential that, it really helps when we own it's not the first time. Because it kind of shows, hey, it's a little bit of me. I do this often, and I'm really trying to work on it. And you kind of admit, yeah, that is my nature that I kind of do that. Not kind of, but I do. And so it really helps with the apology. It's a little humbling. And we want to apology. I'm sorry that, I stole your maha. It was wrong of me because, and in the future, I'm going to continue doing it. It doesn't work. In the future, I'll check whose it is before I take it. We want to do how we're going to repair in the future, I go. And then we can ask for forgiveness. So, in order for this to stick in your head, I'm going to leave this up here, and you're going to just turn to somebody's side. And you don't have to apologize for something you did with them. You may not know them. You can just apologize for something you've done to somebody. They don't have to know who it is. You get to just practice making the apology. And then when it's time to go and apologize to that person, you'll have it in your like sandwich, great thing, and it'll be very good. So this is just practice for apologizing for any old thing. So find a partner and give it a try, and the partner will help you tweak it. Oh, that sounded more like a judgment. Try that again. They're going to help you. All right? So find a partner. Because I should be prepared.
In the future, I will practice. Will you forgive me? By actually going through a little deeper process of asking for forgiveness, it helps to actually clean the air, to clean the slate. Because if I just say, I'm sorry, and walk away, that cleansing doesn't happen. So it just helps to heal the situation.
Anybody else have a question, comment? All right. Go ahead, go for
One
it.
of the hardest things, especially for a leader, is to say, I am sorry, I made a mistake. In other words, it's like a loss of credibility, a loss of...
You feel like it's a loss of credibility, but when you're sitting on the other side, it's an increase of credibility. Because I can trust as a follower that when he makes a mistake, he's going to own up for it. And so I know there's going to be improvement. So that's one of those fallacies, that if you be a leader, you have to be perfect. And that's usually causes the fall down leaders because of that heavy pressure. So it's just the opposite. And I think even as parents, we need to realize that when we make a mistake, we can go back to our kids and say, I was a little bit, harsh, and I'm really sorry. I should have done it better. This is what I would have liked to have said. You can patch up things quite well, and then kids can learn, oh, we can make mistakes, and we can fix them. Because in all relationships, there's some harmony, then there's going to be disharmony. It happens moment by moment, in a half an hour. You can go through all the phases, harmony, disharmony, you can have a little disagreement, you can come back. What people don't realize is the essential thing is repair. So when you have a little bit of a tiff, if you don't repair it, it's going to start going downhill. And we see that in friendships, we see that in marriages, all kinds of relationships. The relationships that break up are the ones that don't have a system of repair. So this is part of the repair process.
That effort that's extended to bring the disconnect back into reconnection is what moves relationships forward. And it's a normal phenomenon. And we see it in the spiritual world. There's seemingly dissension, like between God and Krishna, has little tiffs. There's all kinds of dissension. We have a 1-month festival about the dissension between Mother Yashoda and Krishna. It's even there in the spiritual world, but there's a spiritual purpose behind it. And it helps us to grow together.
Because when we go together and we work through these things, we feel closer, isn't it? Who are the friends that are closest with? The ones you went through adversity with. So there's always going to be this disrepair, always in relationships. We need to learn repair. That's what we need to learn. We can't expect it's going to be, Shangri-La, the spiritual world, as my husband's saying, even the spiritual world, there's disharmony because you got to work at getting back together again, and that's what makes it sweet.
Actually, there's not disharmony, but Prabhu said there's no discord. There can be arguments, but Prabhu said there's no discord. The discord means I see you as a spirit soul. Krishna's also involved in this. He's in your heart, my heart. He wants us to work this out. And so there's a harmony, even though we have some difference of opinion. The Prabhu said it's okay to have differences. It's okay maybe to have little fights. But he said there should be no discord. Discord is like when 2 notes are played and they're out of tune. And the right tune is realizing that we have to work this out, please Krishna. Then we're in tune. That's right.
So the second one was that we're going to talk about is we had accountability, and we're going to talk a little bit about vulnerability. Now, vulnerability is scary because vulnerability, it just implies uncertainty. I don't know what's going to happen. If I'm a little bit vulnerable and I share my, emotions with someone, I don't know what's going to happen back. Right? And so there's uncertainty, there's risk, and there's some emotional exposure. And that doesn't always feel safe because sometimes we've, shared our emotions and it hasn't been safe. It's just that if we want to have connected, close relationships, it has to be on the emotional level, and we have to be able to share them. So we need to take that willingness to take that risk, to open up. And it's hard. I was going to ask you why is it hard, but I kind of already told you. Does anybody else want to say why it's hard? You what?
It can be used against us.
Yeah, you're afraid. Yeah, you're afraid it can be used against you. So, of course, we do want to be vulnerable with discrimination. It's not that we open up to everyone. We open up and we're vulnerable in those relationships that really matter to us, and we want to have a deeper connection. So, that requires overcoming that fear, of pain that it might be hurt. And taking a little bit of a risk because we have had many experiences where it hasn't gone well. However, we've grown, we've learned, we have more skills, Vaishnava relationships are important to us, and so we can, with our tools of Krishna consciousness, come to our higher self and soothe that scared part of us and take a risk to make better relationships. And so we have to a little bit drop that self-protection, and the way to do it is to lead with soft emotions. We're not going to come across with our harsh, I'm angry, I'm, helpless, I'm hurt. We want to come with the underlying emotions. That's a much softer way to approach repairing discord. And so when we can communicate a little bit what's underneath, like my husband was saying, what's underneath the So that's really what you're feeling, but you're just putting this wall of your harsh emotions to keep yourself protected, but it doesn't make you connected. So there's times when protection is important. We need to choose, do we want protection or we want connection? And if we're looking for connection with someone, we've got to go to the softer emotions that are underneath. It's the only way we're going to get through it. And that's a skill. So we practice it, we try it with someone we feel it's a safe situation. We try it, it goes well, and then, wow, hey, that wasn't so bad. And you try it again, oh, that kind of worked. So then even though we were scared before, and usually we come across by habit with our hard emotions, when we try, we start to make new behaviors. And scientists even find you make neural pathways. Because when you're habituated to always going to the anger, this, that, it's a habit. And without even thinking, we go to the anger, the harsh emotions, because our brain has made a pathway to go there. So if we want to make new pathways where we go with a more Vaishnava behavior, that's going to take practice. However, the good news is that when we practice something, if you can practice it for a few times a day, 2 or 3 times, in 3 weeks, you can have a new neural pathway and a new trait developing. Now, unless you keep it up, you can lose it again. You can keep it up for a couple of years. But if you practice something for a few years, you're not going to go that old way again. People think, oh, I'm never going to be able to not get angry. You can. You practice making the new pathways, the new directions you're going to go. And with continued practice, yes, sometimes you're going to blow it. Sometimes someone's not going to respond well. Okay, you'll be hurt. So you're a big guy. You could be hurt. You try again the next time. Sometimes we try to be, vulnerable with someone, and most of the time it's going to work, and every once in a while they're going to be having indigestion or something, and they're going to respond poorly, and you might get hurt. That's okay. It still helps us to keep trying. So we are going to let you give that a little bit of a practice. So again, we're going to have you turn to a partner, and I'm going to show you here some of the stronger emotions. Ooh, oh boy. That's, I don't know why it's off center, but anyway, you can still read it, I think. Is that got to do with that or this? I don't know. Thank you. So, there's anger, and really even fear, sadness, helplessness, hurt could fall under anger, but we're just dividing it up a little bit more. So I want you to find a partner and recall an incident where you felt one of these strong ones and think, actually, I was just I got really angry at that person, but I was frustrated because X, Y, and Z. And how I could have behaved was this X, Y, and Z. So if you can find the emotions underneath, it can give you choices on roads to take for repair. When you just express the top ones, you're kind of stuck there. But the finer ones underneath are signposts on what you need to know to go in a better direction. They're telling you how to go somewhere better. So we're going to give you a little bit more time with this one. And so, find somebody that you're happy to be vulnerable with. Or maybe somebody you don't even know, that would be even easier to be vulnerable. And give it a try, expressing what you learn when you go underneath. All right. Because you're talking to a man? Okay. You want to give me some feedback on how this works for you on this side? Any feedback?
Yeah, by talking it out,
yeah,
you become a little bit more objective, a little detached, and you can have a better perspective of what you did wrong, but how to do it right.
Yeah,
You know, it's like it gives you that detachment, that
yeah,
objectiveness.
for sure,
Yeah.
yeah. And
So honest communication or having a good listener
yeah,
is a really good thing to have in life.
for sure. Any other comments? Or? Somebody on this side of the room asked me, so what do you do when the other person just doesn't respond or just kind of, you know, they can't take it in, they can't receive it. And
Because men also need cave time sometimes.
yes, you can have cave time, but when you hibernate, it really hurts. I'll let that sink in a minute. Yes, we need our cave time. You need 10, 15 minutes, maybe even you need a day. However, if you just hibernate and avoid, that's really, it keeps you protected, but it doesn't keep you connected at all. So that's why if you want to have some kind of, meaningful relationship, we do need to learn how to be a little bit vulnerable and share. Now, when a person's being vulnerable, we don't have to fix their problem. All we need to do is empathize. So you don't want to get scared. Oh, I'm going to fix this. Oh my gosh, my wife said this. My whatever's all the anxiety about this. How am I going to fix it? Don't worry about that. In fact, if you start trying to fix it, they're going to get mad at you. Just listen and say, oh, that must have been tough. Or, oh, that was nice. You got excited. Good for you. Whatever they're sharing with you. Just feed it back. You will be the knight in shining armor. You didn't even have to do anything. So that's my tip for this side of the fence, the world. And there's going to be situations where you try to express your vulnerability, and even if it's lady to lady or man to man, it's not necessarily a gender thing. The other person just has a lot of pain inside, and they cannot open up, and they're scared to let that vulnerability come out from their side. That's okay. When you don't get triggered and you stay in your higher self and you're reaching out and you're trying to, treat the other person with respect and you're trying to get a little closer, that's a good day for you. If you reach out, try to bring them up from their lower self to their higher self, because remember, only in our higher selves can we relate. When one of us is in our lower selves, no relationship is going to be taking place. We're going to be doing that protection, that harshness, that walling off. So sometimes we just can't get out of that lower state. And so another person in their higher self may come and try to get us out of our lower self. And they might, so say you're the person trying to get someone out of their lower self. You try once, you try twice, maybe even try a third time in a nice, gentle way, and you realize, okay, they just need time. They have to figure that out for themselves. That's okay. So that is not a good day for that person. It's an okay day for the relationship because you tried to help, but you didn't. And it's a great day for you. Because despite someone else trying to pull you down into that lower mode, in with their thing, have a battle, have a fight, you stay in your higher self. That's a great day for you. And it doesn't mean we don't try. We try to reach out and help people, and if they can't accept it, still, we stayed in our higher self and we did the right thing.
Can I ask something?
You may.
Is it not selfish?
Is what not selfish?
This kind of approach that I confess, so I feel good about myself, but whatever they do, it doesn't matter because I feel good about myself.
Ideally, you're going to switch sides, and you're going to hear from the other side too. It's not just about you. You want to understand them also. And part of the reason that you're expressing your vulnerability is because you want to find out, what do I need to do to fix this? This happened and I felt this way and that way, so what actions can I take to make the relationship better from my side? And it's going to improve both sides. And then if the other person also has some hurt, then we switch sides and we listen to theirs. And then we say, okay, that hit you in this way, and that affected me in this way, so now what can we do to fix this? We have more leverage on how to know how to fix it, and just saying, you're a jerk and I'm mad at you. How are you gonna fix that?
Yes, but my question is, why should I feel good about myself if I confessed and that person is still not, not satisfied or not feeling, that the problem is gone away? Why should I say it's a good day for me?
Because you stated you acted with integrity. That you tried to apologize, you tried to express your emotion, you did the best you could, so you actually have integrity. So by feeling good, we mean you maintain your integrity, that you stayed within your higher self and your values as being respectful and kind and compassionate as best you could. So in that sense, that feels good to remain in your integrity, although it is very uncomfortable also that they're not able to accept what you're saying.
You can also, after stating, how you're feeling, so what can I do to repair the situation? What would you need? So it doesn't stay selfish. You're just explaining your feelings and how it's working on you, and knowing this, and now you let me hear from you, what can I do to help you? It's not that you're just dumping, well, I was in a bad mood, and that's why I did this, and you're just gonna have to live with it. We're not saying that.
No, yeah, I understand that, but I'm just, my sense is a little bit superficial, because if I go to another person who, I did something wrong, yes?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to sincerely apologize to them. And so the motivation for this is for me to see that they suffer.
No. The motivation for you is to see how you can repair the relationship and how you can do it better next time.
Okay, for me, it would be other.
Oh.
So
That means you're probably going in your lower self within that.
I'm definitely lower self. But that's how I feel. Definitely I would feel.
Yeah. So then you have to work that out within yourself before you go to the other person. Yeah. And you want to say something, Amal?
I have a question. So I have tried following this after your last presentation in Toronto. My only question would be, it's easy to follow everything once we are sitting there, but let's say I did something, and because of me, since Monil, let's say he's the ashram leader, he got scolded, and now he's mad at me that Amla, I don't want to talk to you. Now that anxiety I'm getting, that, oh, I want to apologize to Monil, that is the hardest part. The whole conversation, I can go and apologize to him, is easy, but I'm just anxious that, let's say, Monil is going to be mad at me. So how do you deal with that?
That's where the vulnerability comes in. I'm anxious that he's going to be mad, but somehow or other,
that's a story you're telling yourself.
That's a story you're telling yourself, yes. And that shouldn't stop you from going and checking how he's feeling about the thing.
You can say, I'm telling myself a story that maybe you're thinking. I apologize.
That's what prevents you from going and repairing relationships.
We could do a 2-day seminar about this.
Yeah.
So empathy is very important, and understanding is very important.
We were talking about vulnerability. Just make sure you tell me you're switching.
Yes, I'm just going to switch the subject a bit to empathy, which is a part of vulnerability, in that we really need to understand emotions. And sometimes generally men have a hard time understanding emotions because, as I said earlier, sometimes men have blocked their emotions and grown up thinking that emotions were something that men shouldn't show or shouldn't feel. But I would pose a question that we are trying to understand Vaishnava theology to become ultimately pure devotees of Krishna. And in Vaishnava theology, if you study Nectar of Devotion, it paints this whole broad spectrum of ecstatic emotions for Krishna. It's absolutely amazing, inconceivable spiritual emotions. So my question is, if we cannot even access and understand our own emotions, what is the possibility for us to be able to understand these emotions that these pure devotees of Krishna are experiencing? So part of our process of sadhana bhakti is to really process and understand And in that regard, Rupa Goswami has given us this recommendation of two loving exchanges, which are to reveal your mind in confidence and hear in confidence. And just like we were talking about with the devotees together about, some challenging thing that happened and what was the subtle emotion. Actually, even physiologically, it's been researched and it can be actually shown how when you help someone discuss and process some event that happened to them, and they can, you help them name the emotion they felt, their body produces a hormone called GABA, which Uttama mentioned earlier, which is actually it's a very healing hormone. It helps you to calm down and process those emotions. So it's actually a very important spiritual process to talk about our experiences with our close friends or partners, what we're experiencing in life. It's very powerful. So Rupa Goswami, he recommends that to reveal your mind in confidence and hear in confidence. So I just want to ask, have you ever had a conversation with someone while they're speaking, there's a dialogue going in your head about what you're going to say or maybe how you're going to counter this? Has that ever happened to anyone? So what mode of material nature is that hearing in?
Passion.
Probably passion, maybe even some mixed with ignorance. Real hearing means, I might disagree with you. I have a train of thought that's really important to me. And sometimes it might be a fear that if I listen to you, you have a different idea. Your train of thought is different. We're headed for a collision. But you can be confident that you can take your train of thought, put it on the side tracks, and I can just listen to you. I don't have to fear that I'm going to lose my values and my train of thought. It's there, but I can hear you and understand what you're saying and just reflect back. I understand that that's really important value to you because of X, Y, and Z. I can understand that. I may not agree. I may agree or I may disagree, but I can understand you. And similarly, if you can understand me in that way, you may agree or disagree. And even if we end up disagreeing, because we've understood each other, we can be the best friends. Even though we totally disagree on something, politics, whatever, who names it, whatever it could be, we can still be friends. So that's extremely important. And some interesting research shows that what couples fight about, it's not about the issue on the table. The issue on the table might be this big. But because they don't understand, when you don't feel understood, you feel unheard, unloved. And this problem starts to look like this. It just becomes this massive, and couples, individuals can get locked in conflict over issues for forever. Locked like bulls, horns. So it's very important to learn that skill and find someone in your life that you can reveal your mind to. It's extremely important in our lives for our spiritual health and also our mental health. And it's also extremely important when we do have examples of great diversity, differences of opinion, something that's disturbing us in our close relationships, that we actually are able to sit down and understand each other and try to come to some kind of resolution. And there's a very wonderful example in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the chapter, the son of Drona punished. Has anyone read that? Has anyone not read the chapter, the punishment of Aswatthama? I think everyone knows that. So there was a dilemma because Aswatthama had committed a heinous crime. Bhishma, he wanted capital punishment. Draupadi changed her mind and wanted to spare him. And it describes there was this big argument back and forth, and they were both giving Vedic evidence. And Krishna is there, and it's described, Krishna manifests 4 arms to try to pacify everyone. And it's very interesting. And so Bhima spoke, Draupadi spoke, and then Krishna said, Arjuna, as described, he gave Arjuna a hint of what the solution should be. Does anyone know what the hint was?
Give him the punishment that is more difficult than death.
No.
That satisfies everybody.
Yes, he nailed it. Krishna said, Arjuna, I need you to figure something out that's going to satisfy Bhima, Draupadi, and me. Krishna wanted everyone to be satisfied. And we can take that with us when we're having our conflicts and realize it's not just me and you, it's me and you, the household deity, the temple deity. The deity cares about us. He wants us to be happy. And if we can realize, okay, Krishna's in the mix here, we can discuss this peacefully, respectfully, hear each other. And again, even if we're discussing something we absolutely, totally disagree with, according to Rupa Goswami's recommendation of revealing our mind in confidence and hearing confidence, it is loving devotional service. And what happens to the ocean of material existence when you engage in devotional service? It shrinks to the amount of water in a footprint of a calf, which is about that wide, which is easy to step over. So if we can actually learn to hear each other, to understand each other, to put aside our false egos, to think relationally rather than impersonally, Krishna can enter into our relationships and help us resolve problems that might seem otherwise irreconcilable. So it's an extremely important process, extremely important part of our spiritual life, and extremely important key to creating unity despite diversity. The last thing is full respect.
So, this is what I'm saying. So we are proposing that we all try to develop full respect living. And that's how we're going to have this unity in diversity. Because full respect living means that you make a commitment that we're not going to indulge in behavior or words or that are disrespectful to another human being. Because each individual human being has worth. Nobody has more worth than another person. We are all part and parcel of God and equal in worth and value. So when we remember that, then we treat each other same. I have worth, he has worth, we treat each other with worth. The problem is with diversity, we think somebody's wrong, they're down, or somebody's up. But when we have full respect living, we treat each other with value. We see their inherent worthiness. And we also treat ourselves with value. And so, we were just going to end with
As we were saying earlier, that's not always easy. But the thing about relationships are an opportunity for us to develop humility, tolerance, and patience, which are the qualities which are required to enable us to constantly chant the holy name of the Lord. Very important spiritual qualities. So it's actually a blessing that we're together and that we irritate each other sometimes.
Would anybody like to share anything that they've taken from both of our sessions on how to navigate diversity? Anybody?
Is there something you can take away that will help you navigate diversity in your life? Is someone's hand, I don't know if they're scratching their head.
Go ahead, Rod.
I think a big thing that it's easy to know but not apply, that I guess was affirmed, is when you're frustrated or undergoing negative emotions, it's not really productive to meet the other person with those negative emotions, but rather go to more of the underlying feelings and then try to communicate.
Lid is not conducive to constructive conversations. Anyone else?
Maharaj back there wants to say anything, and then after Maharaj we can pass it to Nina.
Hare Krishna. Just good job. scientific.
Because when we feel understood, we feel valued. And there was one researcher, Stephen Covey, he said after air and water and food, the most important thing is understanding for a human being.
When you feel understood, you don't feel alone. That's cursive and personalism that you're alone.
Go ahead.
Somebody's hearing you, so you feel concerned.
Yeah.
Are you saying about diversity? What was your point?
Well, the topic was how to keep unity when we're all so diverse.
Yeah, I believe that because not everybody, somebody would like rasgulla,
Right.
some would like
Samosa.
barfi. So still we can have unity in diversity.
Yeah.
Right? It's not that my way or the highway.
Right.
Yeah, that's how I feel that there will be always, the spiritual world is full of variety also.
Yes. And that's what Krishna likes. He likes diversity. We forget it. We just like it our way. Krishna likes diversity. Can you pass that to Manil? Thank you. Can you stand over this side? So, we're just going to end by just having, singing one line of a bhajan. We're just going to follow Manil.
Prabhu, I also had a question.
Okay, go ahead. Since you got the mic, you got the power. Who has the mic has the power.
So, Prabhu, you were talking about full respect living.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone has the same value as you. So my question is like, why do we think that other person is of less value than us in the first place? Because if we think that everyone has the same value, then we won't do anything or say anything that will disrespect them or make them feel bad.
That's why we're in the material. That's why we're in the material world.
Oh.
Because we want it to be the most.
And sometimes we don't notice we feel like that because, you know what, it puts you a little bit in a grandiose position. Well, I'm better. And grandiosity feels good. That's why you don't notice it. And you don't realize that it's wrong. The more grandiose you are, the less empathy and compassion you're going to have for others. Because you don't notice it.
It's a false sense of self-worth. An artificial sense of self-worth.
All right. Manil is going to sing a line and we're going to follow. And the words are up here.
Sakala samana kurite shakati deho natha jatha jatha. Sakala samana kurite shakati deho natha jatha jatha. Abe to bhai ho harinama sukhe aparadha habe hata. Abe to bhai ho harinama sukhe aparadha habe hata.
O Lord and Master, inspire me with the power to befittingly honor all living beings. Only then will I sing the holy name of the Lord in great ecstasy, and my offensive activities will cease. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. And
Thank you.
Vaishnava Sanga ki jai.
Thank you all. Thank you all for attending. We actually learned a lot from you, and we hope you learned something from us. Hare Krishna.
Ganadan, the gift of knowledge. Thank you so much.
We also have a website, quite easy to remember, VaishnavaFamilyResources.org. Some leaders have referred to it as the go-to resource for everything Grahastha. Many years in the making, all kinds of material there for Grahastha. You can examine that. It's there for your benefit. Thank you very much, Hare Krishna.
Thank you so
so much, Partha Prabhu and Uttama Prabhu, for that very insightful presentation. Let's give another big round of applause for that presentation. Please. So we're now going to break for lunch. So that's going to be outside, and you're just going to keep walking past